I'm here with my good friend Dave, and we're here today to discuss this latest court decision dealing with the Kinder Morgan expansion pipeline.
Crushing.
Well, it's unbelievable, actually. What has happened here is that this judge has thrown the whole project into absolute turmoil. The government is stumbling around. They don't know what to do about it. And, the opposition, the Conservative members of Parliament, actually called for an inquiry through the committee, the standing committee in Ottawa. But, of course, the Liberal MP shut that down after only 45 minutes of debate.
You know, this decision by this Federal Court of Appeal, I think, really kind of focuses on this sort of gaping chasm between the power of judges and the power of elected officials. Parliament, democracy. That's what this clash is about. These are unelected, appointed judges to the Federal Court of Appeal. And in the decision, Jay, they said the National Energy Board did everything it was supposed to do. Under the Act, it did everything right. It did the consultation with Aboriginals. It did the environmental work, did the risk management work, did everything. The court admitted that. Then it said, but they didn't do enough.
Well, can't you always say that about any decision that's made?
Forever.
Well, you didn't do enough.
You didn't do enough. And that was sort of the subjective thing by these judges saying, yeah, well, I know it's the law of the land, but you should do a better job. That is not their job, is it?
That's right.
This is an activist court that is now deciding federal government policy on the fly, on their own. Jay,
Well, and I think what really disturbs me is that while the government, and I know this from sitting at the cabinet table, while the government of the day, whether it's Liberal or Conservative in Ottawa, they have to weigh so many different factors in a decision they make. And so, as you say, in this case, the cabinet's sitting there trying to make a decision on how to proceed with this pipeline, and they're back in that position now thanks to this court decision. But they weigh a lot of factors that the courts and the judges will not weigh. And one of the things they weigh is what is best for the country. And that doesn't seem to factor into the judge's decision at all. I mean, he's just looking at it and saying, well, they didn't do enough. And so everything grinds to a halt.
But I guess it's this idea of this immeasurable sort of deadline the courts want. Just do it better. Well, what does that mean? And they say, well, it has to be reasonable. Well, what's reasonable, Jay? Reasonable to an Aboriginal leader is different than Aboriginal or to an eco-warrior and then to a politician or to a Canadian involved in the industry. So how does it work that way?
We've ran into this for quite a few years now with court decisions involving First Nations, right? And this whole issue of the responsibility to consult. And where does that begin and where does it end for any government? Or for any corporation, any oil company that wants to do any work on a First Nation reserve or on their claimed land.
I think because of what the policies we've had in the past that are now with this government culminating in this this focus on Aboriginal people, I think we have given new meaning to the word consultation. I don't think Native leaders think about it as consultation. They think about it as permission.
Yes.
And that's what's happened. It's really a part of the problem.
But it seems like the judges have picked up on that too, and they view it in the same light instead of viewing it what's best for the country. I mean, we have thousands of oil workers that are out of work right now, and their future is in jeopardy, in question, because of one judge's decision, and I would add an unaccountable judge. At least if a government and a cabinet and a prime minister makes a decision, then we can do something about it. We can turf them out of office. But what is the answer, Dave? What is the answer here? How are we going to go forward? And I think one of the things, just one, is that a government has to be much more careful who they appoint as judges to begin with. You have to try to decide if they're going to be policy-making judges or whether they're going to look at it.
And there's very little vetting of judges at this level either. They're pretty much personal appointments by who's ever in power at the time.
Well, having sat and gone through the process at the cabinet table, I can tell you what goes through. And the problem is that I experienced was that as the cabinet makes a decision on who should be appointed to the bench, you try and weigh it based upon that person's track record. But then all of a sudden you appoint them, for example, to the Supreme Court of Canada, and all of a sudden they go off track with what their own personal record is. And so then what does the government do? How do you remove some of these people? You can't, because there has to be this arm's length thing between government and judges.
But I guess one of the things that's bugging me about this debate too right now is this blame the the guy that was in there last. This blame Harper thing, it's
Right.
starting to wear pretty thin. I mean, Trudeau and Notley had 3 years up to this point to fix, if they thought there was something wrong with the process or something wrong with the NEB regulations, fix them. They didn't.
Well,
And now
in fact,
it's-
they made them worse.
And now it's easy to,
In
well,
case of
they
Trudeau.
did.
Trudeau made it worse.
And
no
so we're at the
question.
point now where I think the message from this court is, or the net effect of this decision is, Canada is closed for business.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
And we're out of time.
That's another problem.
But I'll tell you one thing that we're not out of, and that is sponsors
Yeah.
to help us cover production costs. And I'd just like to thank Bob Smith for this latest contribution.
Thank you, Bob, very much. If you want to help us out and follow along and enter the conversation, just click on the subscribe button right below. I think it's right down there somewhere. See you next time, Jay.
Well, what do you think? Was that about a medium, or like, because it wasn't rare and it certainly wasn't well done. So,
Man, okay. You know, we're going to start a little
So it's
contest.
sort of like a medium,
No, we're going to
or-
start a contest. I think we should. For everybody who's watching, to count the number of times you say that corny joke. That would be pretty good. And what, at the end of the
our
year,
editors never use it because
at
they
the end
think
of the
it's
year,
corny.
we'll have a big draw, and we'll give someone an all
But
expense
we
paid
don't
trip
get to use
to
it.
your house.
And we don't get to hear it. Like, I don't get to hear my own corny
Man,
jokes when I
well,
watch
Okay, well,
the retakes.
trust me.
Yeah.